All right, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy Billy G Games back with another deck profile, and I'm joined by
Elijah Quimby.
All right, Elijah, what did you do actually?
I've been playing Tier Shizu. I just won our local OTS, and in my last 28 matches in tournament, I've gone 26-2.
Oh wow, okay, so Tier Shizu, there's probably some spice or something going on here because that's a really good record, right? So why don't we go into deck profile and just talk to me about it and like what's going on here, right?
Yeah. So some of the stuff is really standard, like 3 Hovinus, 3 Shiren. These are the best two for sure. Shiren, in my opinion, is the best one because it's really good going both first and second. You just always need the extender. And then Hovinus is just so crazy in this deck going second. 2 Rhino Heart. Some people are on 3, some people are on 1. I personally like 2 because if you have 1, sometimes it gets banished and then you can't ever get into your Kaleido. And then 3, I really wish I could play 3 because I play a lot of the spells and traps, and hitting him in the mirror is actually super important going second because they have to shuffle him, but it's not a real name. But there's just not space, and I don't want to clog on normals because I already play 6.
Okay, nice.
And then 2 Merly. When we were first testing for Pasadena, I realized pretty early on that Merly just like fucking sucks, which is crazy because in previous versions of this deck I really loved her because she's so important for making Elf, and I'd still love Elf, but like clogging on her now that you have other normal summons, which we'll see later, is just like it fucking sucks. So I only play 2. Then you have the Shizu Package, 3 Medora, 3 Keldo, 3 Kelbeck. This is all pretty standard. I'm currently on 2 Agito. I was actually on 1 Agito for the longest time because I hate this card. This card is awful, honestly. But I moved it up to 2 the day before the OTS Championship because in our area I wasn't playing that many mirror matches, and this card is absurd in anything other than the mirror. And also I'm at the point where I feel like if I mill my opponent on my turn going first, it's typically not that bad because I can just look them in the eyes and say I'm better than you and just outplay them in the resource game where like we're both milling and they get to play, which kind of sucks. But if I'm also playing, I'm just gonna outplay them. And the crazy thing is I put in the second one because I wasn't playing that many mirror matches, and then in my last 13 matches I've played like 9 mirror matches, so this should probably be at 1 as another Bestial, honestly, if you expect to play a ton of mirror matches, and especially if you're not like super confident in outplaying your opponent. Next I have 3 Orange Lights. Some people are cutting this card. I get that. It's fucking awful sometimes. Like you just draw it and you don't have a fairy and then it's the worst thing ever. But if you draw it with like this and a Kelbeck or an Agito versus anything other than the mirror, and sometimes even in the mirror, it's just absurd. And there's also situations where you can like, it very rarely happens, but sometimes your opponent gets really greedy and they use all 3 names in one chain. And then if you pitch like a shuffler and you hit all 3 names in that situation, like they literally just like insta lose the game right there. So that's a crazy interaction. I'm also playing 2 Diviner. This is another card that some people have been cutting. I think Baron's actually crazy. Like I go for Baron over Dweller, like literally 100% of the time. It's just another fairy to make Orange Light live more frequently. Like the math works out where with this number of fairies, if you draw Orange Light in your hand, in your opening 5, you have 4 other cards in hand, and with this number of fairies, you have about an 89% chance for that Orange Light that's already in your hand to be live. And this makes it live a little bit more. It's not like the greatest pitch, but this card it's a normal summon that's really crazy in anything other than the mirror. And it's just an insane mill. Like you bring this back off of Elf and you send one of the Medoras or the Keldos, and then you make Baron. So it's like this one card getting milled becomes like 2 super insane interactions. 3 if you count the Baron pop, which the Baron pop actually comes up a lot because you're always going to be getting Bestialed, or they're going to be Kelbecking you or whatever. Like there's always going to be something on the board typically for you to pop. So Baron's really crazy right now, and this card just like becomes like 3 interactions by itself. If you think you're going to play like literally nothing but the mirror, maybe you take this card out because it's actually like fucking awful going second, and in the mirror it feels really bad to draw. But going second, I just always side out both of these cards. Then we have the Bestial lineup. The best one, Magnemite. I know some people play less of this one and like more of like the Druis Worm, which I only play one of, and one Sarnier, because like they don't want these to get milled and then for your opponent to take it. So they play like maybe like 3 of these and maybe only like 2 of these or 1 of these. Like I know Cotton was doing that. And I get that because it really does suck when your opponent dark takes, but I know that like I super prioritize putting this card back. So like if I'm playing on my opponent's turn and I mill it, I always try to put it back with like my Merly or my Hovinus or my Fusion or whatever, because first of all, going into Mud Dragon and the mirror is super insane going second because it turns off their Kit Kalos targeting itself. So it's really good because you would already want to go into Mud Dragon because it's probably the best thing you can go into going second. Like going into like a Stapella or a Rukalos actually just like doesn't fucking do anything to them most of the time if you do that going second. But if you go into Mud Dragon, it can really bottleneck them because Kit Kalos can't target itself. And then if I ever have like any extra shufflers, like let's say they only use 1 name and they don't have like any statues engraved or anything, but I like milled a Medora or 2 Medoras, like I'll typically like target that one thing and I'll put back my own my own Magnemites because I really don't want them to take it. So you kind of have to be really mindful about this. You can really get fucked up by having it milled, and like I'd be taking Magnemites all day, but I try to play really mindful about it, and I feel like no one ever really successfully takes my Magnemite. 1 Druis Worm. This was 2, but I changed out the Agido for this Druis Worm, or I traded out the second Druis Worm for the second Agido, just because again I wasn't playing that many mirror matches. But the correct thing really should be to play the second Druis Worm, honestly. And then the 1 Sarnier. A lot of people don't really, they never, in this deck, they never use its send effect, which is like super incorrect in my opinion. If this gets milled, you can use it to chain block like every time and you just send the Druis Worm, because realistically, like they could take the Druis Worm with Dark, right? But they're never going to do that because then Druis Worm gets its effect and Sarnier is already engraved at that point. So you use this to like chain block. So like I had a chain sequence in one of my games where like I hit like a Merly, and then I had this in hand, and my opponent had like Rulu Kalos on board, and I went like Chainlink 1 Merly, Chainlink 2 Kelbeck, targeting the Lulu, and then I also milled the Sarnier, so I like milled this, and then like some blanks off of like a Hovinus, and I had this in hand, and then I went like 1, 2, 3. So like the Sarnier chain blocked the Kelbeck, and it bounced the Lulu. So like no one, literally, I've never seen any of my opponents in all the mirrors I've ever played ever activate this effect. But you really should, because like it can thin your deck. And like you don't care if this is engraved because Magnemite can also add it from grave, which some people don't know. That's actually really important. I had one opponent at one point at the OTS Championship be like, oh, I can't resolve Magnemite. I was like, what do you mean? Your Druis Worm's right there. So this is actually like, literally no one ever uses this effect, but sending the Druis Worm is good because it thins your deck for better mills, and then also it chain blocks things.
Oh, pretty good.
So yeah, people don't know about that. Then you got like some Spose. Instant Fusion, super good. Planet is the best card in the deck. Like if I have to choose between having one of these 2 cards in my opening hand, almost all the time I'm going to choose this. With a ton of Bestials in the format, like this is maybe more important because sometimes you just like really don't get to play the game because there's so many Bestials, but like Planet gives you just infinite. Like it's the 500, everything is just, everything about that card is insane. Terraforming, just another. And then I play 2 Scream. I really wish this card could be at 3 because I actually think it's just crazy. Like it says like mill 6, it's just like way better than, like you'd way rather have this in almost every situation other than like an Agido, right? Like the only thing that Agido is good for is that it makes your Medora and Keldo live in hand, and it makes your Orange Light live. But like, if you think about, other than like not thinking about what else is in your hand, if you just think about just this card, you'd rather have this card than a Gito in every situation. Like, I'd way rather mill this card. I'd way rather draw this card. Like, this card is crazy. I wish I could fit it at 3, but there's just not enough space. Then I play 2 Suliak and 1 Crime. A lot of people play either 1 and 1, or they just play 1. I think those people are crazy. With so many Bestials in the format, Crime has a real mill effect. Like, for a really long time, Crime did not have a mill effect, which is why people didn't play it. People would always say, like, man, that archetype has a fucking searchable counter trap. How come no one ever plays it? Well, first of all, it was because Kit Kalos could search it, but you never really wanted to search it because you normally need like your Merly or your Rhino, or like Suliak is probably just better in a lot of situations in those formats. But now you can search it off of Scream for free all the time, which is just insane. And it has a real mill effect, because before, in past formats, like before the last ban list came out, like none of your stuff was almost ever getting banished except for like Shifter. But now this card gets milled, and like they banished it off of, you know, a Smashers, or they banished it off of a Bestial is the most common. So this card has a real mill effect now.
Okay. How many cards is this?
This is 41.
41?
Yeah.
It looks like, you know, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so it's the deck space is really tight. I don't really think there's anything I would necessarily cut to go down to 40. Like, you could cut the second Agito, but like every time I've ever like cut down on Agito, I just replace it with like another Bestial or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know. It could be 40 if you really wanted it to. If you expect to play more mirrors, you should definitely play like maybe some of the less fairy stuff, like less Agitos, maybe less Diviners, and play bigger Bestials. But if you think you're going to play kind of like a mixed room, or you just think that you can outskill the mirror regardless, then this ratio is really good in my opinion. For the extra deck, Sprint, Exoton. Exoton is one that I'll talk about. Really, it's the only thing that's not standard in here. This is super good versus everything that's not the mirror. You just blow up their board. They're never expecting it. They never play around it because they think your only board wipe is going to be Zeus. So this card's really good in everything but the mirror, and sometimes it even comes up in the mirror because you board wipe them, and if like Kaleido's not part of the board, like sure, all of their stuff comes back, like their Lulu comes back, whatever, but it just doesn't matter because this isn't a once per turn, it's a once per chain, so you actually just do it again. And even if it was once per turn, you could blow up their board, then you could go battle phase, swing, and then you overlay into Zeus, which is typically what happens when you clear their board anyways. You clear their board in main phase 1 versus like Sprite or whatever, go battle phase, swing, and then you go Zeus, and then the Sprite player has like 2 or 3 cards in hand, and they start their turn, and that deck just like can't play through Zeus. And then Baguska, Baron, Beatrice, Baron because of the Diviner. Dark is crazy. It steals Kit Kalos when your opponent is bad and they leave it engraved. It also steals Magnemite, which is the most important thing. Like you steal a Magnemite and then you overlay into Beatrice, or you steal a Magnemite, you get its effect, which is just a free +1, and then you go into a Sprint or an Elf, and that's just like, it's just free. Stapella, Kaleido, Swamp, only 1 kit, 1 Rukalos, 1 Garua.
The standard 6, there it is.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd say is like, do not sleep on this card. This card is actually fucking insane all the time. You should be making this very frequently. A lot of players just like almost never make this, but it's actually super important for breaking boards. Just going second, this card is really good. It's just so much of the interaction in the game is targeting, and people don't make this enough.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And then the side, the most important card in the side deck, in my opinion, is the triple tack. I side this in every single game. Like at the OTS Championship, I sided this in literally every single game. I only played the Mirror and Sprite. And like going first is just crazy because they activate a monster effect, and they're always going to activate a monster effect because you're like, if they get milled in some way, like if they activate Hovinus or Kelbeck, or you mill them, or Sprite is going to hand trap you with Bystials or whatever. This card is going to be live 100% of the time, and you can hand rip them, you can steal. It's so diverse. The only reason it's not in the main, despite the fact that I put it in every game 2 and 3, is that what I side is very different depending on if I'm going first or second. So the way that the main deck is built right now, I don't think that this card is like necessarily better than any individual card in the list, but depending on the situation, it's always better than some card in the list. So this is probably the best card in the side deck, I would say. Droplet, this is really important for like dumb decks like Flu, just anything. I don't really even side it that much in the mirror. Sometimes I do, but like honestly, something that people don't understand about the mirror match is like Dweller is just like, it can, a lot of the time, Dweller is just not correct to go for. It makes your board very like susceptible to being broken, in my opinion. Like, it's just not that hard to out Dweller when you have things like Bystials, because you just beat over it, and then you play on the next turn. Like today, there was a situation where my opponent had, he had Elf, a level 4 like Shiren, Magnemite, and then he had a Diviner Engrave, and he had no Keldo, no Medora Engrave. And he also had Crime. He searched Crime off screen. And so he special summons back a Diviner from Grave with Elf. And then I'm like, dang, he's going to make Baron and have a statue Engrave. But instead he sent Herald with Diviner. And then he just had 2 level 4s and he overlaid them into Dweller. And like a lot of people think like, oh, Dweller's just a turn skip, you lose. But what ended up happening was I baited the Crime and I beat over the Dweller, and then I went Dweller Zeus, and then he just insta-lost. He just insta-lost, but if he had Baron there, he would have had more points of interaction, because the Baron is a negate, and then you also have the statues, just like a significantly more resilient board. So yeah, I don't really put this in the mirror because the point would really be to negate Dweller, but honestly, you can kind of play through the Dweller a lot of the time. I have 3 Droll. This is probably the weakest card in the side deck. I have basically never put it in except for like Flu. It's the reason why I've picked Droll over something that's actually like genuinely crazy versus Flu, like the Zombie World package, is at the place where we play, there's like quite a few Pendulum players, and this card just kind of ends their turn. The problem with that plan is that the Pendulum players just always get gate kept in the first early rounds versus like Sprite or something, so I literally never pair into them. So it actually, this card, and then the Flu players, they always draw Shifter. So this card actually kind of sucks. It should be crazy in theory, but it actually probably should be like more Bystials or something that's just like crazy versus Flu. Then 1 Heartbeats, 2 Twin as my back row removal with 1 Pankratops. I'm thinking about switching the Pankratops. I feel like it's crazy in theory because like it really fucks up Sprite boards, and like even in the mirror it's not bad, and like the way my side deck pattern is I really only side in 4 cards for the mirror going second, which like sometimes doesn't feel like enough, but like the deck space is so tight that like it's kind of hard to side a lot of cards. And these are the 4 that I do currently. I don't know. Since it's only 1 slot, it's kind of hard to say what else it should be. And like, I don't know. It's just a really versatile card. Like no one else really plays it, but I kind of like it. And then Heartbeats because it's searchable, and like I play Twin instead of something like Lightning Storm or Evenly as my other back row removals, because it pitches for cost, which is really cool because you can pitch like an Agito or a Kelbeck, and also Lightning Storm and Evenly, like they kind of suck because really with this deck, the thing that makes this deck just crazier than every other deck is that you really get to play on your opponent's turn. Like Havanus and like Orange Light plus a Kelbeck or a Agito or whatever, like you're playing hella on your opponent's turn, and if you play on your opponent's turn and then you draw your Evenly or your Lightning Storm, then you can't activate them, and that really sucks. And then 1 Called By, this is just for going first versus Flu, and then also going second versus Sprite. It's pretty good because you just hit like the Toad. And then the last card, this is a pretty good level 2 extender. Something that really sucked was that at the OTS Championship, I printed my DB list. And my DB list doesn't require a level 2 extender, but my in real life list does actually require a level 2 extender. And I got deck checked in round 5. And I got a game loss because you don't need the level 2 extender on DB, and I printed the list without it on there. And then I didn't have this for the rest of the tournament. But the truth is, in my last 28 matches, I've gone to time 1 time and scattershotted them. And the only reason that was because it was like round 1 versus a day 1 Despia player who I let take like 4 minutes for every single play they made. And like if I had just told him to play faster, it would have been like insta game. And like I could have 2-0'd him really quickly, but you kind of don't need this card, honestly. Like I didn't have it in the OTS Championship for all of Top Cut, and it never comes up on it. If you know how to play the deck and you're playing quickly, like you'll either be 2-0ing your opponent, or like the first 2 games will go by kind of quickly, and then you just win game 3. So I don't know. This card kind of sucks actually, but I mean you just need a level 2 extender.
Right.
And that's all. Shout out to my homie Leo. Only person I'll ever shout out. He loans me everything and is also the greatest of all time. So shout out to him.
All right. Thanks, brother, for the deck profile, right, man?